guests from around the globe, welcome to the Florida Trade and Cultural Expo, a Renaissance Evolution Chief Cultural Officers Panel. Recent events here in Italy have prevented Honorable Mara Carfagna and myself from being there in person, but are, however, very much engaged in and supportive of this international initiative. As an Italian senator, a citizen of the European Union, I understand and value Renaissance Evolution's mission of facilitating global relations and business by applying innovative, cultural, relationship-based and disruptive business strategies. I hope you enjoy, as well as adopt and implement these strategies in your ongoing or future endeavors, and formally invite you to join us at our 2020 Senatorial Roundtable event to be held in Rome in partnership with Renaissance Evolution. I wish you good work, and I hope there are new opportunities to attest our deep friendship with the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Robert Massero, Executive Director.
Honor to introduce you our speaker of this morning, Art Estopinian, Father Albert Coutier, President Daniel Garza from Libre Initiative, Noel Zamot in this wonderful speech. There is a video.
Evolution, understanding the art of human connectivity, relationship building, the epicenter of opportunity. Renaissance Evolution offers the insights, perspective, and new formula for the sustainable collective growth of global markets. Through its understanding of the intricacies of human interaction, foresight into future trends, and network of global influence. The Renaissance Evolution Academy presents a new executive curriculum and C-suite position. The Chief Cultural Officer. It's all about connecting. The culture of knowing what's next. Disrupting one another. Bringing people together to help each other. Seeing the impossible as possible. Creating greatness together. The Chief Cultural Officer. Shaping the evolution of the global economy.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Father.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
So great to see everyone here. We're excited about this conversation. It's going to be a phenomenal one, and I think we have some incredible panelists. But before I introduce them to you and speak a little bit about who they are and what they do, I wanted to share something that I found that is very meaningful to me, and I think probably meaningful to all of us. It comes from the great Gandhi, who was the liberator of India. He said, a nation's culture resides in the hearts and in the soul of its people. So what we're about to talk about right now, I believe it's very much at the core of our humanity, and it brings us all together, regardless of tradition or where we come from. And I want to say that I think the reason they got a priest to be the moderator of this panel is because they wanted to make sure none of them get in a fight with each other. I have to come in and break them up. But they're actually all very peaceful, good guys. Let me introduce to you Mr. Daniel Garza. Daniel is the president of the Libre Initiative, and he's a former associate director at the Office of Public Liaison at the White House. Welcome, Daniel. Mr. John Dixon is the president of the World Trade and Development Group. Welcome, John. Colonel Noel Samot is a recognized United States Force Colonel, Air Force officer, but he is also very, very involved in his own business and his own work, and so we also welcome Noel to come to this panel. Welcome, Noel. Art Estopinan, another wonderful president of the Estopinan group, but I must say also someone I've known for a long time, involved heavily in the world of politics and culture, and we're so happy to have you, Art. Welcome.
Thank you.
All recognizable, wonderful people to start this conversation, and let me just say that we have some questions for them, but we also have, as we begin, these pillars that Roberto spoke to us about, that I want us to have in our mind as we speak, because the key pillars of this chief cultural officer position are transparency and ethics, sustainability, culture and education, health, well-being and happiness, trade and economic opportunity, foreign policy, business for good, and diplomacy and peace building. So let's keep that in the forefront as we begin this conversation. And I know that most of you have a microphone next to you. Art, I think this one's going to be yours. Is this one on for Art? It says locked on it, but I just want to make sure that it's on, just in case he needs it. Danielle, I'm going to start with you. And I'm going to ask this question of all of our panelists and give them time to kind of go back and forth and kind of moderate really the time that they have, because obviously we have a lot to deal with in a short time. But what does the concept of Chief Cultural Officer mean to you? And how do you feel it fits into the new global economy?
I think very simply it's about the exemplary actions, the model behavior that you're seeking for within your workforce. Also the expectations of carrying out either the vision, donor intent. In my case, because I run a nonprofit organization, we don't actually provide a product, but more of a service in the sense that we advocate for policies, we impact the Latino electorate across the country through our messaging and our policies, but also because of the community work that we do. And in doing so, a culture is going to develop in your organization. Now, we launched in June of 2011, and you can help steer your workforce in the kind of culture that you want to develop. And so a cultural officer in that sense is very important in making sure that they are setting the direction, that they're setting the tone, that you're incentivizing those employees to work towards that vision that you have, that kind of culture that you want to develop, that you reward them as well, and that there's going to be some consequences when they're not operating within that framework, within that discussion. So to me, it's very simple. It's setting up, I think, model behavior, model actions and conduct, and the expectations that you have on your workforce.
Very good. John?
The idea of a chief cultural officer is one that's been floating around already for a while. I think that business and culture are inseparable in the first place, and I want to congratulate Vice Mayor Holness for this program and the amazing success it represents. The title of the program being the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo. So you've already put them together, and here you have business people, we have academics, we have the artists, and every aspect represented there. So I've noticed, I was just at the UN General Assembly 2 weeks ago, and there was a fascinating discussion led by the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation and the Commission on International Religious Freedom. And it's interesting today we're at this business forum and also being moderated by a priest, and that is further evidence that this is already happening. But people were talking about the allowing employees to come to their company as a whole person and even bringing their faith and expressing their faith. And so this is happening with American Express was there and very many international participants as well. And then later a week later I went to a fundraiser for the Pearl S. Buck Foundation, and that's the woman that wrote The Good Earth and has started a foundation for helping orphan children and young children from around the world. And she, the foundation she created made an initiative called the Workplace, a Welcome Workplace, recognizing that these cultural questions are absolutely critical in the business world. So the banks, the local banks were there talking about the initiatives they were doing. So that's already happening, and I explained to people how excited I was because I'd be coming to this and we're talking about the Chief Cultural Officer. And she said, well, that's mostly handled by HR department and it's kind of invisible in the company, but it is being recognized now. Creating a position of Chief Cultural Officer is lifting that position and that awareness up in the workplace and in the community. So that here it's happening automatically in front of us, but this brings attention to the absolute importance and significance of this cultural awareness in business.
Thank you, John. I wanted to say Noel is an Air Force colonel. I wanted to get that right. An ethical entrepreneur and the president of the Atabe Group. Noel.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Alberto, and thank you, Vice Mayor, for the opportunity here. Two things for context. I served my country for 25 years, flew a strike, went into business, started a couple of companies, and my last job before this was to serve as the sole economic development person on the oversight board for Puerto Rico. So I've seen the impact of ethical investment in long-term economic growth. I'll leave you with two things. Number one, we have a saying in the business world that culture eats strategy for lunch. You can develop all the strategy you want, you can develop all the processes that you want, but if you don't have the right culture in your organization, you're going to get nowhere. Number two, for long-term economic sustainable growth, you need ethics and transparency. So if you are actually going to better the lives of millions, you cannot do it with a short-term viewpoint. You have to have a very long-term viewpoint, and the only way to guarantee long-term success is if rules are more important than the desires of the few. And the only way to do that is through transparency and ethics. So back to your question, Father, it is incredibly important that companies and organizations adopt a culture of ethical transparency if we are really going to be in a position to create economic and public benefit at scale. So this is not just an idea that may be in fashion or whose time may or may not have come. I believe it is absolutely imperative if we are going to have a serious discussion about long-term sustainable economic development that benefits the world.
Thank you, Noel. Art.
Thank you, Father. So as my colleagues have said, this is a brilliant idea, and I'd like to thank Roberto and Jose for inviting me here today to be part of this panel with my distinguished colleagues. After working in the U.S. Congress for 27 years, being Chief of Staff to the former Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and been very involved in international issues my whole life, this concept of the Chief Cultural Officer is extremely, it's a brilliant idea, and it's extremely important. Because I remember when I was in government, I used to have time and time again American senior executives coming to us, and they're like, we're initiating a company or a project in this foreign country, and they don't understand, and we don't understand their ways and their culture, etc. So elevating a chief cultural officer to work directly perhaps with the CEO, CIO, and making them part of the key decision makers is extremely important. And it's an issue that in an increasingly global economy, it's so important, and I'm so happy to be part of this. and hopefully I can contribute and somehow to make sure that this becomes more of the rule rather than the exception.
Excellent, thank you, Art. So we've all seen the list of pillars, and we have an idea of what we're looking at here, and I know that all of you have extensive experience, as we've already been able to see in everything that has come out in your first comments. I want you to choose one of those pillars, and tell us something that you remember from your work, your experience, or something you're experiencing right now in what you're doing, that you could somehow connect with our reality. As I was listening to Noel specifically, I was thinking of our young people today. We call them a lot of things. We call them millennials. We have a lot of names for them. But one of the things that I see happening more and more is that they are really calling us more and more out to transparency. Not just the government. They want to see it everywhere. And we see that. In spite of, we have so much communication, so much information, it seems to be that they're more concerned about getting the truth now, the immediacy of it. And so that's a challenge for many of our governments and our systems that are used to going through processes to get to where they need to get, right? What would you say of these pillars? What speaks to you the most right now and what you see happening in the world around us? And maybe from your own experience, you can share something?
Yeah, so for ourselves, well-being would probably be the one that I think most applies for us in that list that we were rallying off. At the Libre Institute, we're part of the Stand Together network. And one of the main benefactors to Stand Together is Charles Koch. Charles Koch likes to say, we'll work with anyone to do good and with nobody to do bad. And what he strives for is a society of mutual benefit. And that vision, that well-being vision of being successful by serving others, whether in corporations or at a nonprofit, also applies to an organization like ours. Now, we started off almost like strictly, honestly, as an advocacy organization. Less taxes, less regulations, more free markets, economic freedom, these kind of things that would be considered center-right, if I'm being honest. But in applying this culture and driving this cultural model, our staff understood real quick that when we were engaging Latinos on these issues, we realized quickly that they were facing obstacles, barriers, disproportionately than other Americans. And what I mean by that is, there's 60 million Latinos, 30% of us only speak Spanish. That's a major barrier to success, to opportunity. In some states, 50% of us don't have a driver's license. That's a high number. It's something I think all of us in this room take for granted, a driver's license.
What percentage did you say?
It's 30%. Or I'm sorry, almost 50% in some states for driver's license.
Wow.
Yeah, it's lesser in other states, but when you're talking about these kind of obstacles, that matters. 33% of Latino adults do not have a high school diploma. So we said, wait a minute. If these folks can't access the free market, what good is the free market to them? If they don't have equal opportunity, why are we making false promises of having equal opportunity when they're facing these barriers? They're not getting a square deal in America. And so what we did was actually start to allocate our resources through this cultural model and help people to get their driver's license. In Las Vegas, for example, I'll be really quick. We talked to a flea market owner who had this amazing space that he was not using. And he says, and we teamed up with Fox Latino from Las Vegas, and we said, let us use this space and we'll bring you customers. And so we worked with Fox Latino to advertise that we were going to be holding expert training on driver's license. 90% of Latinos in Las Vegas were not passing the first time their driver's license exam. So we gave them this expert training. 500 Latinos showed up in our first session, and 500 after that, and 500 after that. Today, thousands have gone through this training, and our success rate is now up to 80% of the first time the folks that go through this test, and then almost 100% when they do it again. So this actually has changed lives.
Yes.
English courses, financial literacy, citizenship, GED training. We're providing all these to thousands and thousands of Latinos. And now guess what? But because of this cultural model, we are finding that the free market has opened up to these folks. And they become champions of the free market because now they have opportunity that they didn't have before. And I think it had a lot to do with just, opening up yourself to a little bit and seeing beyond just what you want and what the community needs as well. So well-being, I think, is very critical.
Thank you, Daniel. I was going to throw something in Art. Go ahead, Art.
I would like to say that when Jose invited me to participate, I told him, well, I just started doing that. With my own consulting group, I have an Asian partners because I need someone that knows the cultural sensitivities of those countries. So we just started the Asia Partners at the Estopinan Group, and I want to do it with Africa, and I want to do it with Latin America as well. I have colleagues in Japan and South Korea, and an American that speaks Japanese, Korean, and Mandarin. So that sort of cultural sensitivity is key, I believe, for my success with my company, because I'm going to learn about what they're interested in and how to go about doing business in those countries. So for practical purposes, I am implementing what we're discussing here now. So that is a great, great example, I believe, of what needs to be done. And I think what more and more companies and firms are going to realize.
Definitely. And one of the follow-ups I wanted to offer here is it's key to foreign policy for any nation today to have that cultural sensitivity. Because sometimes I think we impose our value system, our traditions, our sense of understanding reality on others without realizing they're not getting it, so there's no connection, right? So one of the pillars is foreign policy and diplomacy and peace building. I don't know if there's something that maybe Noel or John would like to speak to about that.
So, I wanted to just go back to the first pillar that you talked about ethics and transparency.
Okay.
In July of this year, Puerto Rico lived through